The ocean doesn't give warnings. It doesn't send signals. It doesn't explain. One moment everything is normal and the next it's gone. May 1968. At the height of the Cold War, somewhere deep in the Atlantic Ocean, a U.S. Navy nuclear submarine is on patrol. Silent, invisible, armed. Its name, USS Scorpion. And within days it would vanish, without a distress call, without a trace, and without answers that still satisfy anyone today. To understand what happened, you have to understand the world Scorpion lived in. This wasn't peacetime. Not really. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a quiet war beneath the surface. A battle of submarines, spies, and nuclear shadows. Every movement mattered. Every sound could mean life or annihilation. USS Scorpion was a skipjack-class nuclear-powered submarine. Fast, agile, deadly, its mission classified. But like many submarines of its kind, it likely tracked Soviet naval activity, gathering intelligence in a game where being seen meant everything, and being heard meant death. In May of 1968, Scorpion was returning home. It had completed a deployment in the Mediterranean and was heading back to Norfolk, Virginia. On May 21st, the crew sent their final message. Routine, calm, nothing unusual, no sign of distress, no hint of danger, just silence after that. When Scorpion failed to arrive on schedule, concern turned into urgency. Then urgency turned into fear. The Navy launched a massive search operation. Ships, aircraft, listening stations across the Atlantic. They scanned thousands of miles of open ocean. But the sea stayed quiet. Days turned into weeks. Still nothing. No debris, no oil slick, no emergency beacon. It was as if the submarine and the 99 men aboard had been erased. Then, months later, a clue. Using underwater listening systems designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests, analysts picked up something strange. A series of acoustic events, sharp, violent, recorded on May 22nd, the day after Scorpion's last message. The sounds were analyzed, compared, replayed, studied. What they suggested was chilling, an implosion at extreme depth, followed by smaller secondary events, the kind of sounds you'd expect if a submarine collapsed under pressure. But why? That question would haunt investigators for decades. In October 1968, after months of searching, the wreckage was finally located. Over 400 miles southwest of the Azores, nearly 10,000 feet below the surface. Too deep for divers, too dark for the human eye. What they saw through remote cameras was disturbing. The submarine was broken, crushed, sections scattered across the ocean floor. The hull, designed to withstand immense pressure, had failed. But something didn't add up. Submarines like Scorpion aren't supposed to just implode. Not without warning, not without trying to surface, not without sending a distress signal. So what went wrong? Theories began to emerge, some official, others far more unsettling. One theory pointed to a malfunctioning torpedo. Scorpion carried Mark 37 torpedoes, advanced weapons for their time, but they had a known issue. Under certain conditions, they could activate accidentally. If a torpedo became hot, meaning its engine started unexpectedly, it could circle back toward the submarine that launched it. Imagine that, a weapon turning on its own vessel. Some believe the crew may have attempted an emergency procedure, trying to eject or disable the torpedo. But if it detonated or forced the submarine into a sudden maneuver, it could have triggered catastrophic failure. Another theory focused on the submarine itself, mechanical failure. Scorpion had a history of maintenance issues. Budget constraints during the Cold War meant some submarines skipped full overhauls. Instead, they received partial fixes, quick solutions to complex problems. If a critical system failed, like the ballast tanks or propulsion system, the submarine could lose depth control. And in the deep ocean, there's no room for error. Once a submarine sinks below its crushed depth, the pressure becomes unstoppable. Steel bends, structures collapse, and in milliseconds everything ends. But there's another theory, one that moves beyond accident into confrontation. At the time of Scorpion's disappearance, Soviet naval activity in the Atlantic was intense. Some believe Scorpion was being tracked, possibly even engaged. There were rumors, never confirmed, that Soviet submarines were nearby, that a confrontation may have occurred beneath the surface. No witnesses, no survivors, just speculation. But in the Cold War, truth was often buried deeper than the ocean itself. The Navy conducted an official investigation. They reviewed acoustic data, analyzed debris patterns, reconstructed the final moments as best they could. Their conclusion: inconclusive. No single cause could be proven, no definitive answer, just probabilities, just fragments. And families were left with questions that never fully settled. 99 men, sailors, fathers, sons, gone without a goodbye. No final message, no last words, just silence. Over time, more details surfaced: declassified documents, independent analyses, new interpretations of old data. Some experts leaned toward the torpedo theory. Others believed structural failure was more likely. And a few still suspected something far more secretive, something never meant to be revealed. But here's what makes the USS Scorpion story so haunting. It's not just what we know, it's what we don't. Because in a world filled with satellites, sensors, and surveillance, a nuclear submarine disappeared, and even now, decades later, we can't say exactly why. The wreck still lies at the bottom of the Atlantic, a silent grave, untouched, unanswered. The ocean has a way of keeping secrets. It swallows evidence, it distorts truth, and sometimes it never gives anything back. Somewhere in that darkness, the final moments of USS Scorpion are frozen in time. A sudden failure, a desperate reaction, or something else entirely. We may never know, but one thing is certain. On that day in May 1968, something went terribly wrong beneath the surface, and the ocean kept the rest. Because the scariest mysteries aren't the ones we can explain. They're the ones that disappear without a trace.